I'm in the process of making a carved plaque, kind of a carved picture of a ruins, a building that we saw in England recently, the Bolton Abbey. The result will be something like this. This was my first trial at this process, where I've made a three-dimensional model of the ruins of this abbey in SketchUp. I've only modeled up 3 of the walls from a picture that we took while visiting this property. And this is a building that goes back to the 12th century, somewhere around there, give or take 1,000 years. And after making the three-dimensional model, I printed out a picture of the ruins, and when I printed, I used the vector printing rather than raster. It gives a lot better printing. And then I reversed the picture, flipped it along the horizontal axis, because I want to impress this picture on this plank of wood that is good for carving, basswood, plank of basswood, and I've hand planed that surface. I've sanded it to 320, and I've swept it off with a vacuum to take all the dust off. And I want to use a procedure for imprinting this picture on the plank so that I can carve the plank. And this procedure is an acetone process. I've already taken one of these reversed printouts from the laser printer, because this won't work from the other kind of printer that needs to be toner from a laser printer. And I've already taped that piece down onto the wood, and as soon as I put acetone on here, you'll start to see the picture that is on the other side, other face of the printout. So the process I'll use is with some acetone and a rag that I'm going to rub onto this back side of this printout, and then I'm going to rub on it with the back side of a carving tool. This acetone dries fairly quickly, so I can only do a little bit at a time before it goes away. There you can see that picture. Now I've got to remember where I stopped and where I need to go. When I modeled this, I tried to show the stonework, because that's really the heart of this construction, is all this beautiful stonework. This was a Catholic abbey, and in the dissolution, or whatever you call it, all the Catholic churches and abbeys and institutions were brought down by the king, destroyed. This one was partially saved. It's in Yorkshire, England. We recently visited Yorkshire and hiked to this location. It's on a river, big river, and there's a later Anglican church that's kind of built around it on the other side, and that's very old as well. I'm not going to use a real complicated carving in 3D. I'm going to be basically copying over the edges and the stonework, all the lines, arcs. I'm pressing pretty hard. That seems to be what it takes. You know, I'm going to stop, see what we've got. Okay. Now, I think it's going to work. It's a little light in some areas. I wish it were a little bit darker in places, but I'm going to be able to work with that. Yeah. So now I'll get out the carving tools and start cutting some lines here. Okay, I'm ready to start doing some carving here, and just finished up really sharpening these V-tools, and they are sharp, so I should be in good shape to do this. Now this baseline here is pretty light. Hard to see. I don't have to go very deep with this. This is a number 15 V-tool. And the other tool that I use is, it says number 2, but I make the stonework with this tinier tool. This is basswood again, which is really nice to carve. I don't have to worry so much about the grain direction. There's a little bit of a ledge here that I want to get. There's the bottom edge of that ledge. and the top edge very close. Okay, and then a transition to a smaller cross section in the structure. Another ledge up here in this, I guess you would call this a buttress, structural stonework that stabilizes the height of the walls and against wind and forces of wind and whatever. It's a beautiful building. And you can walk all the way around it. Inside, there's no roof. It's all open. A lot of green grass all around it, with sheep in the fields. I probably ought to do this with the smaller tool. Getting pretty small there. Alright, then there's this big peak here in this arch opening on the end of the building, and going up here. As I said, I'm not going to do any three-dimensional carving in this thing. I'm just outlining the edges. I guess this could all be done with a laser from the SketchUp model. That's cheating. Okay, let me just do this arch so you see how that works. And then I'll do a little bit of the stonework so you can see how I do the stonework. Alright, there's the straight line, and then I start the arch. Right up to the peak right there. And then the other side of the arch starts here and comes around to the peak. That may come down in here, say in here, and do a little bit of this brickwork on this buttress. I picked up this little number 2 tool, and it's a bunch of parallel lines. Can't imagine. This is all limestone. All the stonework, the buildings around this area in Yorkshire, all the homes, and I guess they have a lot of rules about what new construction looks like, because they seem to hang on to this architectural beauty in these little villages. So that's the spacing on these stones, and then every once in a while there's a little seam, the vertical cut. Some of the stones were pretty big, so a lot of manual work, manual labor, and without machinery and cranes, etc. And alright, you get the idea of what I'm going to be doing here, just with these two tools. And then the next step I'll show also, which is shellacking over this and then putting a filler of plaster of Paris that with lamp black that'll define all these little cuts and bring out the picture. Now, I've got these letters here, Bolton Abbey, and I'm ready to carve that. And again, I'm going to use V-tools. I'm going to use probably 3 different V-tools here. And this big one, this is a number 14. And for the broad parts of the letters, I'll dig in with this, and it goes pretty much across the whole width of that letter. Okay. Here I've got to start light and then dig in and begin a turn and then lighten up. There we are. Repeat that, hopefully just as well as I did it on that one. Start light, then dig in, make your turn, and come up. Alright, then I can use the smaller number 15. In fact, I think I'm going to go even... No, I think that was the right one. I can use that, I think. And do these little serifs, and I got to come out. And there's this center of the B here. Okay, that's good. Alright, I'm ready for the O. I'm going to start out like I did with that B, kind of then dig in a little bit deeper, make the turn, go real deep, and then start to back off. Chip gets in the way of what I can see. And I gotta back off a little bit to thin out. Okay, I think that's going to do that. Well, the next step is going to be to embed plaster of Paris into all these little cuts. The plaster of Paris is white, but I put lamp black, mix that into it, and so it'll show up black. I'm ready to apply this plaster of Paris, and I've mixed in some lamp black into the plaster of Paris, and I'm going to add some water now. And don't want to get too much water. It's a little tricky on getting the right amount of water, and I'm going to need a little bit more than that. I've put a coat of about 3 coats of shellac on the plaque, and that helps prevent the black to absorb into the fibers of the wood. All I'm trying to do with the black is to fill the carved out grooves that I've cut with the V-tools. So that's what will be left after I get this embedded into those grooves. Then I gotta get it off. I don't want it covering the whole piece. I just want it in these grooves. So I'm going to have to clean it up. Well, I almost didn't make enough of this stuff. But I think I'll be okay. Yeah. I'll be okay. Now that's getting into those grooves. This stuff dries fast. It's just water based. And so I'll be able to sand this in just a few minutes and get it off of where I don't want it on the surface. I don't want it on the surface. I just want it embedded down in those grooves. Okay, I'm going to now scrape off this excess here because I don't want that drying thick on there. Just using a regular scraper blade. I put a piece of masking tape over the letters right here because I don't want to embed down in the letters. I could, but I don't think I need to. You can see the words without it being embedded with this black. They're big enough letters. Now, it looks like okay. It looks pretty good, I think. I'm just going to check here. I don't want to dig it out of the grooves. I want it to stay in the grooves. So I'm just going to let that dry. And in a few minutes, I'll use some 320 sandpaper and get rid of the stuff on the surface there. Hopefully leaving a nice embedded figure here. Okay, I've let this dry for about 15 minutes. I think it's dry enough. I've got a piece of 320 sandpaper. I'm just going to rub lightly and vacuum away the dust. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a few more minutes and then I'm going to vacuum that off, do a little bit more sanding. I've sanded most of this extra waste of plaster of Paris, sanded that off. I'm just now going to coat with some clear shellac, seal this in. This is de-waxed blonde shellac, and I'm picking up a little bit of the plaster of Paris. So I'll be sanding again on the surface to clear that up. Okay, I think I've got it about where I want to have it, and then I'll sand it, sand off some of that shellac, and then coat the whole face of the plaque. Here's the finished product after doing a couple thin coats of shellac and sanding, and so this is ready to put up on the wall, I guess. It's a place that we visited a couple times in England, this 12th century abbey, that is in ruins, has been for hundreds of years, but it's a beautiful building and fun to remember, and having this in the house on a wall somewhere will remind us of our visit there.